All right, so today we're talking about age verification, and yeah, it's getting kind of out of hand these days. And I'm saying this because ever since the Online Safety Act of last year came into effect, it's basically been downhill, and it's basically also Pandora's box for everybody trying to get their own, you know, little inch on the whole age verification game and getting your information. Because let's be honest with ourselves, this was never about children in the first place. Because if it was about children, we'd be telling parents, hey, there are certain tools you can use, such as, parental controls, and you can actually ban sites on your own internet if you don't want them accessing it, and there you go. But anyways, the point is that I actually came across a law that is not insane, but it just goes to show you what is going on, especially particularly in US Congress, because in the UK, like I said, already been passed. So this was called the Parents Decide Act, which is kind of insane, but it says here, this bill establishes age verification requirements for providers of operating systems, which includes software that supports the basic functions of a computer, mobile device, or general purpose computing device. First, operating system providers must require users to provide their date of birth to set up an account on and use the operating system. If users is under 18 years old, the operating system must require a parent or legal guardian to verify the user's date of birth. Now, I don't need to tell you this, but first of all, your operating system does not even need this in the first place, because why you want to. It's just all it's doing is running the basic stuff for your computer and getting your essentials that you need. Why would that need to be age verified? To me, that's a bit much. And so that's one of them. This one's not really. It's kind of in talks, so it's not really been pushed then. But it's more like an introduction, so it's not really there yet. Either way, that's one of them that's going up. But this other one, which is arguably a bit more, on the nose because it's a bit more up. But here talks about S3062, which is talking about here to require artificial intelligence chatbots to implement age verification measures and make certain disclosures and for other purposes. I know. I know. It sounds weird, but that's essentially what it is. It even talks about here, this act may be cited as the Guidelines for User Age Verification and Responsible Dialogue Act of 2025, or the GUARD Act. And so in their findings, they mention here that artificial intelligence chatbots are increasingly being deployed on social media platforms and in consumer applications used by minors. These chatbots can generate and disseminate harmful or sexually explicit content to children. These chatbots can manipulate emotions and influence behaviors in ways that exploit the developmental vulnerabilities of minors. The widespread availability of such chatbots exposes children to physical and psychological safety risks, including grooming, addiction, self-harm, and harm to others. And of course, in the last one, says protecting children from artificial intelligence chatbots that simulate human interaction without accountability is a compelling governmental interest. And I feel like there is a solution for this, at least in my opinion. And the solution is called being a parent. Okay? Of course, your parent can't naturally watch everything that a child does, but in a way, if you use the tools that I mentioned beforehand, you can mitigate these by quite a bit. And on top of that as well, it's also up to the parents, or should be up to the parents, to educate their children on the danger of these things. Because guess what? It's kind of your job. And especially, you have to understand, once the government steps in, it's a whole can of worms that could be involved. Because now imagine this, right? Every time you open up ChatGPT, which you probably shouldn't be using in the first place anymore, but or Claude or Gemini, whatever it is, and you have to tell it, oh, I'm above the age of 18. Mind you, that there's also sycophancy within AI models, which literally tailor everything towards you. So you do the math. And also, a case that also brought this up is literally the one where, unfortunately, a young man had taken his own life when talking to an AI chatbot. And he says here that the state alleged a character AI bot named Emily claimed to be a licensed psychiatrist. The chatbot's description on Character.ai's platform read, "Doctor of Psychiatry. You are her patient," according to the lawsuit. So yeah, unfortunately, the young boy lost his life, and so the company is being sued. Now, if you actually go into the lawsuit, it's kind of insane, because literally, if you actually take a peek, it says here, Holding out oneself out as holding a license issued by the board by providing a false license number constitutes the unauthorized practice of medicine and surgery, and Character Technologies Inc. does not hold a license to practice medicine and surgery in Pennsylvania. And if you want to read the section 442 or 42238, you can read it there, which just basically says you cannot unlawfully, impersonate a medical or practice medicine or surgery. Now, if you actually go to this website, you can literally tailor make your own character to what you want. And mind you, when you do this, it is a bunch of ones and zeros. It's a bunch of lines of code. It's not a real person. And so, if, for example, I made a character and I just gave it some basic traits, and literally, look what happens. It does what I told it to do. So if I make something that behaves like a psychiatrist, it's going to, well, behave like it. But either way, regardless, this is still a tragedy. But that's like cases like this is why stuff like the Guard Act, like I just mentioned, is getting pushed out even more because of stuff like that. And mind you, you have that plus Online Safety Act all into one place. And the crazy part about AI models is the fact that even when you run them locally, like I'm going to show you right here, this is called LM Studio, where you can literally download, and I'm using Gemma, which is basically Google Gemini, but the more local version. It really runs on my own server. Well, it runs on its own server and everything. And so you can literally see here, on the right-hand side, there's parameters, and you can literally customize the bot to how you want to work with it. So basically, like, no matter what, these technologies always come with, being personalized to you, no matter what it is. And so the fact that character AI can make you do that is just a basic function of all LLMs. But even so, this still doesn't address the main problem about what this does. How is verifying your own age going to really, stop AI from, or stop people from pushing themselves to the edge? Okay, like stuff like AI psychosis, it's not because you didn't verify your age is why it's happening. It's because there's already underlying issues that aren't addressed. And so you have to ask you guys, what is being addressed by, putting your age in there. And don't forget too that AIs already collect so much information as it is, which is why every time you use an AI, make sure you take out all of your personal information, because you don't want that to be out there for anybody. So yeah, that's kind of what it is there. So that's kind of like what we have here. And so seeing this is only the tip of the iceberg, because there's other cases that I want to show you guys where it gets even more frustrating, actually. Now that you understand everything and now we have our bases covered, you have to go into this thinking about something else. So remember, Pandora's box is open. Okay, Online Safety Act is already out. So that's already there. Unless it gets reverted, then it's already there. Now, what you're going to start seeing, at least what you should have been seeing, is that different countries or different areas are going to start enforcing stuff in their own way, because now it's like, oh, if it worked over here, it's probably going to work over here, or it's probably going to work over there, or it's going to work over here. And so particularly in Utah, there's two acts that I saw. So one's about App Store like verification, and the other one is about essentially banning VPNs. Which is really crazy to me. So let me direct your attention to the first one, which is called the App Store Accountability Act. And so it sounds interesting. Maybe it's a good thing. So let's read what it has to say. So general description goes as this. This bill enacts provisions governing App Store operations and creates requirements for age verification and parental consent. And so it says your defined terms. It says requires App Store providers to verify a user's age category, obtain parental consent for minor accounts, notify users and parents of significant charges, share age category and consent data with developers, and protect age verification data. It also prohibits App Store providers from enforcing contracts against minors without parental consent and misrepresenting parental content disclosures. And so essentially what they're asking you to do is every time you want to buy, I don't know, what's a game people play on the App Store these days? Okay, I'll say, I don't know, Angry Birds number 20, okay? So Angry Birds number 20 developers have to say, listen, okay, all right, you're above 18, you can buy this, whatever. And you might be saying, okay, well, that happens in the real world, so what's wrong with this on here? The difference is, if I want to go buy, say, beer, alcohol at my local store, so the clerk's going to ask, okay, can I see your driver's license? So they look at it, they verify, they give it to me. The difference is, the clerk is not a machine that is logging my driver's license every time I want to go back and buy my alcohol. So why should they do it here? And remember, once they keep your information, who knows what they can do with it? So that's the problem I have with it. And the part that kills me too is that literally once you put on stuff like parental controls, you can literally see what your child wants to buy on the application. So why does the state have to get involved? Doesn't make sense to me. And that's the first part of Pandora's box. And the second one is literally called, and I hate that I have to say this again, but online age verification like amendments in the state of Utah again. And so it says here, this bill enacts provisions related to online providers of content harmful to minors. And so if you're going to go down, it says here, consumer protection to be used for mental health programs, enforcement of age verification requirements. It says here, provides for liability for publishers and distributors of material harmful to minors who fail to perform age verification, and it grants the Division of Consumer Protection Authority to investigate and enforce age verification requirements. It says provides administrative fines and penalties for violations of age verification requirements. And so you might be thinking, well, it's kind of a headache, but essentially, if you actually go to section 14 of this law, it also says here, regulation based on physical location. So under the law, an individual is considered to be accessing a website from Utah if they are physically located there, regardless of whether they use a VPN, proxy server, or other means to disguise their geographic location. And it's also a ban on sharing VPN instructions. So commercial entities that host a substantial portion of material harmful to minors are now prohibited from facilitating or encouraging the use of a VPN to bypass age checks. This includes providing instructions on how to use a VPN or providing the means to circumvent geofencing. And mind you, the reason why VPNs are there in the first place is so people don't get your IP address. So it's already defeating the purpose of why you have it and why you're using it. And so, in case Utah wants to get rid of that, this is also not great because, say, you want to go and access something from Russia, okay, and maybe it looks a little bit weird. Say, I don't know, you're researching nuclear warheads or the Tsar Bomba or something, and so someone it was looking at it, say, oh, someone from Utah looked up the Tsar Bomba, probably a terrorist, and guess what happens? You get taken away. So, like I said, I'm a little dramatic, but regardless, you're seeing that this is not exactly a good thing. And that's just one of like many different cases. And so the question you might be asking me here, how exactly has this been successful? Like, has there been any successes when it comes down to age verification in 2026? Maybe there's a success story you can mention. Maybe there's something else. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So, for instance, in the UK, actually, a nonprofit called Internet Matters, they actually ended up surveying like 1,000 children about age verification checks online, and apparently, about half of them said that age checks were actually very easy to bypass. And also says here, children demonstrated clear awareness of how to bypass age checks, either through their own experiences or by hearing about methods from others, report said. One technique brought up was children drawing facial hair on themselves so that the tools verifying them would think they were older, which was reported as working in multiple instances added. Age verification laws continue to roll out around the world, often under the guise of online child safety, but whereby adults are required to prove their age, typically by uploading a copy of their driver's license or passport to a third-party company before being allowed into an adult website. Critics say these laws allow the creation of databases that can be hacked or leaked and threaten the open and decentralized internet. So I guess what happens whenever you have somebody in a situation where they don't want to do something or they want to bypass it, guess what? It's completely viable. And even then, what you're going to see here is that in a joint statement with different entities, UK policymakers must prioritize addressing the roots of online harm, not undermining the open web. So this is something that was mentioned as well. It says here, the open internet is a global public resource that has long since become foundational to the flourishing of individuals, business societies, digital technologies, and the open web allow us to foster connections, access educational resources, express ourselves, and work together to build a better society. The open web is also an engine for economic growth, innovation, and creativity. Anyone can build successful services and products and reach people around the globe. At the core of this openness lies open standards, shared protocols, and interoperability across borders as the result. So that's essentially a bunch of entities like Stop Killing Games came together and tell them, hey, listen, we kind of don't want the internet to get worse, and stuff like age verification is not really going to help in that aspect. And even then, as I just mentioned, people are bypassing it anyways. And on top of that, it's not really benefiting anybody. It's basically a glorified way of saying, we want your data and you're going to give it to us now. And so let's look at some of the tools that they have. And essentially, there's actually an app released back in April that was literally hacked in under 2 minutes. or at least it was bypassed under 2 minutes. It was a new age verification app that was actually commissioned. And so it's all open source. So it actually has its own like GitHub like repository. So I'm going to show you on screen right now. This is what it looks like. So anyone here can go in and take a peek. But remember, just because it's open source does not mean it's a good thing. Like open source just means that I can see what's going on, but doesn't mean it's great. And so that's just one thing. And mind you, if it happens under 2 minutes, I cannot imagine the amount of people that are going to be attacking the system like back to back. And remember also stuff like Discord got hacked, I think back in like April. No, sorry. It got hacked back in like October of last year. So nobody's really safe. And essentially for a hacker, if you have a bunch of people who send their ID, that is the best place to go and attack and say, let me get some identity theft and start stealing. There's that. And then even another effect of this was that because, like I already said, different areas of the world are rolling it out. You have places like in Canada where if you to access like social media accounts, the federal government's like, hey, we want to put the age of 16, and guess what you have to do to verify that? Oh, what's that? You're probably gonna need some age verification. So really, we live in Pandora's box because it's not very helpful. And so the question you have to ask is like, what could I possibly do to avoid all of this? Now, naturally, a few things you can do, like on your own, is you can start doing stuff like self-hosting. Although I know not everybody has the hardware or the money to be self-hosting. So that's, if you have the means, you can start by doing that. And even by using like your own search engine and stuff. Though I have not started doing that. And even with like local LLMs, I will say this right now, even with the hardware that I have, and I don't have the most advanced hardware, but my fans were just running one local model trying just for the sake of this video. So if you don't have the hardware, don't stress about that too much. However, as I just mentioned, there is ways to protest against certain stuff, and the best way to do it is, of course, hit people's pockets. So if Discord is trying to run age verification again, you can say, hey, I'm not going to use the app anymore. Because literally when those changes were going to roll out, before they rolled it back, I said, listen, you know what? If Discord is going to ask for my age verification, I said, I'm going to not use it anymore. So that's what a lot of people were going to do. And mind you, Discord, from what I know, isn't very profitable to begin with, and they get most of the profits from like Nitro subscriptions and all that. And so that is where we are. And even if that's the case, and there's age verification, that could also lead to another disaster where people are, or like children, for instance, could be targeted even harder by adults, especially if they're age verified. And so even if I want to use something like an NSFW server, like I don't want to give my age for that. That doesn't make sense. But regardless of all that, yeah. So remember that you can do petitions, you can do stuff in that area, you can contact your local reps or something. Do what you gotta do. For instance, like stuff like Stop Killing Games is gaining traction. So if something like that, which had a lot of opposition in the beginning, can get something going, perhaps you can start your own revolution. Anyways, that was a bit of a long one. But essentially, if you want to look up like more like age verification stuff, I'll give you guys a playlist down in the description below. It should be really quick to follow up on. Or I'll give you a bunch of videos you can watch just to get up to speed. But anyways, that's enough out of me for today. I hope they stop doing this stuff, because to be honest, it's not helping anybody. So, if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow my social description below. But that's it for today. I'll see you next one. Ciao.